So your presenter this morning is Kathy. Kathy has worked on the development of the electronic version of the Altare Dei religious emblem for the past 7 years and is excited that the workbook will soon be launched nationally. John, I believe it's actually being launched today?
It is today.
It is today. Kathy is the vice chair of the National Catholic Committee on Scouting, currently working with the National Religious Emblems and the National Vocation Committees. Kathy is a recipient of the Silver St. George Award for her work with NCCS. She is passionate about offering opportunities for Scouts to learn more about our Catholic faith. Kathy?
Okay, thank you. Well, I wanted to welcome everybody. It's really great. I know that people are here from all around the country, so that's exciting. I probably didn't mention, but I am from Phoenix, and so it's been 109, 110. I'm looking for a place to go where I can cool down a little bit. But anyway, so I want to just give you a little bit of background first, on just a brief background. This, like Amanda said, we've been working on this for about 7 years. The idea was actually born at one of our annual religious emblem ceremonies in 2013, and Father Dennis O'Rourke was our national chaplain. He's been a national chaplain and involved in NCCS, but he was my local chaplain, and he and Mark Healy were visiting about, couldn't there be an easier way for youth to, instead of writing in the workbook, the hard copy workbook and all of that, because his son had some fine motor skill delay and he was dyslexic, and so it was harder. And so anyway, they visited and kind of came up with the idea of doing this interactive workbook. So we went through the steps over the next couple of years. He created one chapter, we tested it, and then it was approved by NCCS. And so then he programmed the whole book, and I edited the whole book. And so together we were pretty busy for several years, and then we've tested it in a number of dioceses over the last few years as well. So we decided that it was recommended now. I thought maybe because of COVID-19 and a lot of Zoom meetings and all of that sort of thing, that it would be a good time to try to launch it. So approached the National Executive Committee, and it was approved. And so today, officially, you should have, NCCS members will have gotten an email, and we're definitely starting to promote it. And there'll be another training, it'll be similar to this, but on July 11th. So anyway, and we're happy to be here and some share. So I'm going to share hopefully it'll work here. We'll share the screen. Okay. Here. Trying to get it to, and okay. Now, do you see that as a big screen or not, of the image?
We have the full screen, yes.
Okay, good. And I just need to move the, okay. All righty, so that's just our introductory slide. So let me show. Now, this was just a little bit more information, the intent and purpose of the electronic version. So one thing is, it's not intended to replace group meetings and discussions. It's basically an alternative method, for the Scouts to use to write their answers. Because when you're in a discussion and everything, you're having a nice discussion with your group, they do not all just sit there and write their answers. And a lot of them will end up just writing 1 or 2 words. And nowadays, because there's so many schools that offer, they do their work on Chromebooks or whatever, it just was an idea for that. So anyway, this is not intended to replace the group meetings. And so even now, those meetings can be held by a Zoom or another venue. It's not intended to be the only option available. So a counselor can still choose whether they want to use the hard copy books like we've used in the past, or whether they want to use this electronic version. And it's an excellent option for lone scouts, scouts in remote areas, or when meeting virtually. But it's also good just for the normal program. Youth, this is the part about the timing. Like I was saying, they can use their electronic devices. They use them in their school. And so it's an easy transition. In fact, the first year, that we did this, especially there were scouts that put emojis in some of their answers and all that. They loved it. So it's, for them, it's definitely not too hard of a transition. And then youth of differing abilities may find it easier to use the the electronic version, as I just mentioned. And then given that current situation with COVID and everything, it just makes us an opportunity together with the virtual meeting venue. It makes it another good opportunity. But like I said, even after the pandemic, we can still use this, counselors, because we were using it beforehand, and we'll use it again. So, now, again, this is a copy of the printed version. So some people might wonder, and actually we tried to make it so the page numbers are even correlate. Here and there, they're off maybe by 1 page, but we really tried to make it a copy of the printed manual. So none of the content was changed or altered. And here were a few of the adjustments that we made. In the introduction chapter, I had to reword that a little bit because it talked to make it correspond with it being an interactive workbook and not the printed version. The application can be downloaded. The application that's normally in the front of the book, that can be downloaded, and then when a scout is in person, they can go ahead and take that page and actually have people sign it. Now they could actually make a copy of it or email it and get electronic signatures or whatever you need, as long as they have those signatures. And then we always recommended a completed copy of that signature, that application page with the signatures. A copy would be given to the counselor just as a backup. Because I don't know if it's happened to you before, but a lot of times, sometimes a scout will lose something, and so it's always good to have that backup. Another feature is that the answer space for the requirements, and I'll show you that later, can be expanded to accommodate longer answers. Now, a lot of scouts are very short, they don't write a whole lot, but just in case, or if they want to copy and paste something into their answer, it'll expand it for that. And then all the resources in the appendix can be downloaded and printed. And one of the things we recommend is always that a scout, they have their folder or another little workbook or something to keep some of these things in anyway, no matter what. And so it's especially important in this because then they can have those documents put right into their folder to show their counselor and to have at their board of review. And that always included pictures and things like that. Okay, so here's some more of the features of our electronic Altare Dei program. First of all, it's web-based and access. You do have to have internet access. So Wi-Fi, hotspot, whatever, but there has to be internet access. Each Altare Dei participant will have their own manual for their own individual use. And a scout can use either Apple or Windows software. And then any electronic device, so they use their PC, their laptop, tablet. A lot of scouts might bring a tablet to when they're at a meeting. They can even use their smartphone for this workbook. Anything that any electronic device like that will work. And the manual is accessible 24/7 by the scout and the counselor. So that's kind of a nice feature for counselors, especially because I know that when we would try to review some of the work, and you have to set aside a special day maybe to go through some chapters with the scout to make sure that they're answering the questions. In this case, that can be accessed anytime by the counselor to double check, see how their progress is. And then there are embedded links that access the Bible verses, and and I'll show you in a minute. I'll show you some of that in a minute here. So let's see. Let me see. I don't know if I can enlarge that. Oops. Did that get bigger? Did it get bigger?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
So this is, that's one thing I like. I actually have my laptop has a touch screen. And the only funny thing is sometimes I'm used to that, and then I'll go and touch another computer and you're sitting there trying to make it move and you realize this. Anyway, I just expanded it. So this is just an example right here of some of the links. So we do have, several videos that are accessible. So one of the choices in this chapter is to observe a Catholic wedding. And so if a scout wants to do that, but they can't go in person, then they can click on this link and it takes it to an approved video of a Catholic wedding that's narrated by a priest. And this one, or they can go, and if they'd like to do the choice where they're actually going to read the rite of marriage, I know sometimes the scouts in my group would want to like reenact that, right? And so that's in the appendix, and this is a link to the appendix for that. Or there's other ways to get to the appendix as well. And then this shows you the Bible verses here. We have them all linked. It goes to the USCCB website and goes right to that Bible verse, or the page with that Bible verse on it. Now, one thing I want to say is that people were concerned initially, you know, well, what if we want to teach them how to use the regular Bible? And well, of course, you can still do that in your classes. This is just another option. They can actually access it. They can copy and paste a section from it if they want to into their answer. But of course, if we want to teach them how to open and use the Bible, I still remember doing that years ago, where it was kind of a to see who could get to the certain Bible verse the fastest or something. But that's up to you. But this is one of the features that's in there. And then this is where the arrow that shows how the scout can expand the answer space right there, if they'd like. So that's one of those. That's a kind of how it looks for that. And then the other, hold on a minute. It's not moving. Oh, maybe because I have to make it. Sorry, I had to put it back to the regular size. And then this is just to talk about we call it the device-specific features. So this one is mainly a scout can actually use voice to text. So if they're speaking into their smartphone and they're speaking their answer, we always ask them to save the answer first and then check it, because as we all know, voice to text doesn't always look like the words aren't actually spelled out properly. But that is one of the features that they can do when they're working on an answer. And so that was what that was just pointing out. And like Mark happened to type in here that it can be used anywhere you have an internet connection. And so if a scout's driving home or you're on a trip and they want to work on it and there's actually internet, they can actually work on it then. All right, so here's some benefits for anybody who has the electronic AAD. Like I mentioned before, the scouts can access the manual 24/7 using a variety of those devices. The answers can be entered by typing or using their voice to text, and they can submit their answers to the counselor at any time. The scout can also create a report, and I'll kind of show you that in a minute. So they can see their progress on a chapter or on the whole book or whatever. There's different ways to look at it. And then, like I said, I'll show you this too, the New American Bible on the USCCB website. There's another image I'll show you that they can click on to always go directly to the Bible. And then we talked about that. And then the videos are actually for the baptism, marriage, and holy orders. We have videos embedded in it for those sacraments. And then for counselors, the benefits are that you can, like I said, you can access the manual 24/7. So it actually gives you more time during a meeting instead of maybe reviewing answers in their books. That you can actually have more time teaching and having discussion. And then you can create reports as a counselor that shows the progress on one of your scouts in the group, all of them, and you can do it according to chapter or requirement. There's a lot of flexibility in what reports you'd like to look at so that you can watch their progress. You can also set up a start and end date for completion of requirements, or chapters. And that's part of the setup portion when we set up the group. And you can give, like you would give me the dates that you wanted a certain chapter started and ended. Now, nothing like things don't like blow up or things don't disappear or something if they don't do it by those dates, but it's all meant to be a guideline or a tool if you would choose to use that. And then there's also a feature where you can create a message for the group to see when the scouts log into the manual. And when you create a message, you're all linked. So let's say you have 6 scouts in a group, they're all going to be linked and you're going to be linked with them as a counselor. And so when you send the message, they're all going to see the same that same message. It's in a certain feature, and I'll show you that. Now, some of the requirements that we'd highly recommend, and it really is a bottom line on having a certified counselor, just like we recommend in all of the Altare Dei program or any of our religious emblem programs for older scouts, is that the counselor should be trained. And so BSA youth protection training would be required. And then of course your diocesan safe environment training, whatever the title of that happens to be, because we always want to still practice the safe environment and youth protection. And then you would also need to or should attend, if your diocesan Catholic Committee on Scouting provides counselor training, then you would want to have that training for Altare Dei specifically. Of course, I know some dioceses don't require that, so there is the counselor guide, which has a lot of good information in it on how to work with youth, how to keep them focused and all of that, and then also some tips on every chapter. So it's always good to have that manual as a resource. And then in addition, then you will also need to be trained on the ins and outs of navigating the workbook. And that's part of that. And then let's see, a live demonstration is always key. You're going to teach that to your youth. And you will send out instructions, an instruction sheet, kind of like outlining what would be done at your first meeting to get started. It's like a getting started focus. And because you want them to understand how to work it as well. Okay, and then I'm going to show you, this is the home screen. Don't know if I can make that any much bigger. A little bit. So when a scout, when anybody logs in, whether it's the scout or the counselor, it will give you a greeting that says welcome. It'll have your name, or it'll have the scout's name, not student 4. This was part of our testing. And it'll say you were logged in as a student. If it's the counselor signing in, it'll have your name, and then it'll say you're logged in as a counselor. And then this is the one that shows you, it's a drop-down menu, and I'll show you that in a minute. This is the class message. So this is the spot where I teach the counselors, if they want to put a class message in there, that they can. And it can change, it can stay the same, whatever. Recently I started a group here in Phoenix, and they happen to go to St. Jerome Parish, and so I also assign a password for each group. And so St. Jerome is a writer and a doctor of the church, and so I gave him the password writer. And I also, and then I put in one of his famous quotes. He was famous for a lot of quotes. I put one of the quotes in here for their first class message. So this is what the home screen looks like. And then I'll show you this next slide. Oops. I have to make it go back to the normal size before. Okay, and then here's some more features right here. This is what I was saying. This emblem, the image of the actual medal, if you click on that at any time, it'll always bring you back to the home screen. So wherever you are in the workbook, if you click on that, it'll bring you back to the home screen. And then this Bible image up here, if a scout or a counselor, anybody wants to look up, just look up and go to that, a chapter in the Bible or whatever, they click on that and it'll take them to the home page or whatever, the USCCB website, and then you click on which Bible chapter you want to look at. So those are two quick features as well. And then when the scout is, you click on that little arrow right here, that's your drop-down menu, and it'll show you all of the chapters and everything available. And then the person would click on that. So this one shows that the chapter 2 was highlighted. And then that will take you to chapter 2. And then I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. And you can see all of them listed here. And we always start in the introduction is the chapter that has the application. And actually there's a couple of initial signatures and stuff that the scout's supposed to agree to. And so that kind of information's in there. And then the appendix has all of those other, like the puzzle, the different rights and stuff, but the puzzle and some of those word searches and things are in the appendix. Okay, we'll go through this. All right, so now I'm just going to give you a preview of what the progress reports look like. And this is, okay, so again, on the home screen, this is student 4 still, and now they they look at the forward. So if you want to click on the forward, it's the same forward that's in the hard copy book, and it just explains a few things in there. But it also, this link down here has a video to help answer a few questions, and then the application can also be downloaded right here too, or it can be through the introduction chapter. And then you click on this bar right here that says Show Progress Reports, and that will show the Scout. The Scout can look at their own report. And so we're going to look at Student 4's report. And they haven't really done anything yet. So this is just giving you a little preview of what it looks like. This has Student 4. You can see right here, it'll say Student 4. It has all the different pages in every chapter. And I just want to mention here a bit of the color coding. So if it's white, there's no action required. If it's yellow, then that means you've set the date. It turns yellow because they're within that time frame when you would like to have them work on that chapter. And so it'll turn yellow. When they send an answer to the counselor, it turns orange. So then you as a counselor, when you receive that and you see something in orange, you know that the Scout is asking you, that has submitted an answer, and you need to review it. When you accept the answer as complete, then it turns green. Everything turns green. That's what we want, to see lots of green. And then this other chapter here, let's see, let me show this. So this right here is just showing you the same thing a little bit closer, but it shows you, like it'll tell you in a chapter, tell the Scout, well, I haven't started. There's actually in this chapter, let's look at Student 4, Chapter 1, on page 8. There are 12 requirements that need to be answered. So this tells you how many requirements there are. And then as you go along, as the Scout progresses, these numbers will fill in over here and give you a better view. And so this is what we mean by that start date or the completion date for each chapter, basically. So this one was given, a week or about 9 days to work on. This one was given a few months stuff. So, that's all just part of the tool that you can choose to use or not. Because normally you might also have a regular calendar that you're going to give out to your group, maybe a handout that shows them what requirements you want each week. It's up to you. You don't have to because it's all in here now. But if it's up to the counselor, because things work differently. People will work differently on how they want to approach it. But that gives the Scout a closer look at what. And then one thing I'll mention, I'll remember to mention it when we get to another part. Okay, and then this one actually can show the Scout, the student, what's still required. So this is showing that Scout still has these requirements on these pages. They have these requirements to do. So of course it'd be more meaningful when you actually saw it. But let's say it would show page 7. Let's say he's already started 5, so then it's going to show what the status of those 5 are. Have they been submitted and accepted and it's complete or what? So this is a tool for the Scout to use, and you have similar tools as a counselor to see that.
Is there a comments section anywhere if we want to react to something the child has written?
Yes, there is, and we're refining that a little bit though. Let me go back up here a minute. So right here it says refine, and that's basically what happens if the Scout submits an answer but you think it's incomplete, or you want more information, then you send it back and basically tell them they need more information or whatever. And so then they would make a change or whatever and then send it back to you. And once you're satisfied, then you accept it and it turns green. But yeah.
And one last thing along that line, if the comment that sticks in my head was on the reconciliation chapter, and a child responded to having sex with a classmate, the consequence was pregnancy, and they wrote the action they had to do was marry them. If I want to pass this along to my chaplain or to a parent, is there any way to do that?
You mean to actually show what the answers were?
Yeah.
The actual answer? No, other than, I mean, you can, okay, so let's say a scout says that you can share the counselors all have views. The other counselor, usually you have two counselors, and the parents can actually sign in and view the answers as well. So as long as if it's sent back, some things, if you go back and forth, it's lost. But if you saw it and then showed it, your parent or a counselor saw it, then you'd have that. You could probably take a screenshot of it. It can't, like, we tested it to see if you can copy and print out, but it doesn't. It copies the form, but it doesn't copy their answer. It doesn't include their answers. If you're trying to copy and paste it on a Word document or something, yeah, it doesn't do that. But you could show it and take a screenshot of something like that.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, let's see. All right, so this is a little bit more about the structure of the workbook. And so, like I said before, it's structured exactly like the paper workbook. We're calling that the printed version now. And so this one's in the table of we have a table of contents in the beginning, and it has that information here on the different chapters. And this is just a little bit more of the introduction type stuff. But when you actually get into that, so on this one right here, it shows you the introduction chapter. And then, so they've selected that, and now it's showing you the page numbers. So if you click on page 2, it takes you to page 2, page 3, page 4, whatever. You do it one page at a time. And then this is another view of that. This is the navigation area again. This one's in the chapter 8 on marriage, and it shows the page numbers. And again, you just click on it, and it takes you to that page. And then this is the space where I showed you before about the link, but this is the answer area, and this is where it can be expanded. The one thing I wanted to mention before is that the scout has to answer something in every space. So if this one says do one of the following. Let me try to make it a little bigger. Okay, do one of the following. So they have to, let's say that they want to observe they want to look at the video, but they don't want to do the rite of marriage. Then under B, they would just say, I'm doing A, or something like that. They have to have an answer in there. So all they'd have to do is say, I chose A, and then they save it and submit it. And then with this one, they would do it, and then there's some questions. Share with your counselor what impressed you most about the homily, readings, and wedding ceremony. How do the vows and rings express the couple's commitment to one another? So then they would enter their answer, save it, and then submit it. And so that's the key point for the scouts, to teach the scouts, is they have to save it first and then submit it. If they just type it in and hit submit, it'll be sent to you as the counselor, but there will be nothing in it. So they always have to save it first and then submit it. And then you can see here that chapter, they have the dates in here. That month of March is the dates that they wanted to have those scouts work on that chapter. And again, you're having meetings with them, so you're always reminding them and stuff. It's not like, they're off just doing this all by themselves or anything, but that feature there. And we have it here, check the date and all that. The scout is supposed to be able to be reminded. That's something you can remind them. Okay, and then this one again shows the page numbers you click on. And this one happens to be showing, for example, all of the signatures that are required in this chapter. And so there's a couple different ways. What we used to do is actually, I have a sheet. I couldn't find it, so otherwise we'll probably post it. I'll make sure we post it somewhere, but or just create your own. But you can have a sheet for every chapter. What we did, that says chapter 1, chapter 2, whatever, and it has for example, the unit leader signature space, so that when if a scout could actually, if you're actually meeting in person, they could actually sit down with their scoutmaster or their crew advisor, whatever, open up their desk, let's say they have a tablet with them, access their workbook, and then just kind of show them what their answers were and go through that with them actually in person. But we can still do that virtually now because they can still discuss it and share some of that while they're on their call. But and actually, some are able to have the the savvy to be able to. So you could create a form, and you can still send the form, or or even just get a signature acknowledging, like the unit leader once they've discussed it on Zoom call. They can just the scout could enter in here that we discussed with my scoutmaster on such and such a date, and send it to the counselor. And if there's any question about it, the counselor can always contact the person. But sometimes people can do it with the electronic signature as well. So there's different options here for that. I just wanted to mention the signatures, that's not something that we can work around that, or you can work around it whatever you need to do on that. And then again, I wanted to, let me expand this a little bit. So this again is the save the answer and submit the answer. This shows you that the scout hadn't started that, hasn't gotten that signature yet, hasn't started it, but they're supposed to have it done in that month of August. And then again, the reason we put some of this in here is save the answer first, is so that they can think about their answer. And, you know, is it clear? Is it understood? Did they answer the question? All of that kind of stuff. And then when they have a board of review, they can actually, if there was a question and someone wanted to see that, you know, it would be something that you know, would be clear. So anyway, so if the scout's happy with their answer and they think it's complete, then they submit it. Okay, whoops, I don't know what happened. Okay, then this one's, we call it warnings and gotchas. I say the big thing is here. So again, you have your chapter on sacraments and sacramentals, and these are the page numbers. And so this question is, what are some other signatures that are commonly used in your daily life or family? Daily life or family. Well, anyway, this is just to show you the color coding. And so this shows that the scout was approved. And whatever that answer was, it was approved by the counselor. This one is showing, actually, this one is showing that they sent the answer in, but the counselor wanted something different, and so they made a comment, and then and it's called refining it. And then so that's one thing. And then the orange is what it looks like when you receive the answer, the response. And then the yellow is again one that's still being worked on. So usually the yellow one that's what it looks like to the scout because it's within that date frame. If it's not within the date you've set, then it stays white. So this is showing you the different, some of the different colors. But our big thing is, the big motto is, Jesus saves, and so should you. And we tell them that all the time because, like I said, they have to save the answer and then submit it, and then it'll go through. If not, then they lose their answer. Okay. All right. So then I want to just mention a little bit about setting up and administering a group. So once a counselor has scouts, you know, and you have a group of scouts and you want to start your class, then what'll happen is then you would contact the administrator. Okay, right now I am the administrator, and we are going to, in the future, expand it so that there'll be maybe some person on your local diocesan committee that you would have that would be that person locally that would communicate with me as a national administrator. But right now we just want to get things rolling, and so we'll see. But the process is that a counselor would have their group, and then they would communicate with me as the admin or whoever else the admin might be. And you're going to request the appropriate number of manuals or workbooks to be set up. And what's needed there is the counselor will send their email, and their name and email, and how many youth that they think will be in the group. And so let's say you think there's going to be 6 scouts. So then I would reserve 8 spaces, 8 slots. Just because later, after they've paid and all of that, it's easier for me just to drop it in because it's already created. But if you have fewer than that or more than that, I can add more spaces and all that. It doesn't matter. But it's just kind of an easy way to get started. So I set up the class first, and then I populate that class as each scout or each person pays. So I'll tell you more about that. And so then what we need from the scout is the scout's name, the parent's email address. So we have the parent's email address in there. So if there is any communication, it goes to the parent. So that's another safety issue, you know. So, and then the name of the counselor of the scouts group. And that way I'm making sure that I'm putting everybody together in the right group. So then we set up the Scouts workbook account, and then I provide the counselor with the information on what to cover that first meeting. And then, but once that workbook is set up, then the Scout can log in and could begin working on the emblem, but of course you would coordinate that with your counselor. Okay, and then we have, these are just the costs. The electronic workbook, the little abbreviation is EAAD, is required for the Scout, and that's $5. And I'll show you where you can access that in a minute. For the counselor, there's going to be one that says, we're still working on the label, but it's either going to say EAAD for counselor, or it's going to say counselor electronic version for the counselor. But that's so the counselor has to be able to access it. And so it's a little different view though. The Scout gets the version like I showed you with all the different aspects of the workbook. The counselor is going to see they have access to all of the workbooks in their group. They're all linked. So they will have access to be able to see the different answers and see the different things. But so in order for them to access it and use the program, that's a $5. And then we highly recommend, of course, that you have that counselor guide, the hard copy, to use with the program, no matter what. If you're using however you're teaching at Altare Dei, it's a good guide to use, but you only have to have it once. So like if you've already purchased it, and as long as it's I think the latest version, I think they said was 2016, then you're up to date. And we're going to put the date in on the website too, so you know. If you have a counselor guide from 2000 or something, that won't be the most recent. And then we're gonna, the package deal is just an easier way to order. So for a counselor, you can get that access, you have that access to for the counselor, plus your counselor guide, the hard copy is $10. And there's a link on the website, you'll see the menu, and it's a cart. So you can a person can buy, like a family can just go in and buy the Scout part. A counselor may want to get the package deal, but if the counselor already has the guide, then they're just going to need the access to the workbook. So anyway, it's really a fair deal. It's actually $1 less if you do the electronic version than the hard copy for the youth manual. So and then you go.
Interrupt. All right. So a month ago, I scheduled a class to start tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on the NCCS website yesterday,
mm-hmm.
because I found out about this Monday.
Yes.
And I purchased that $10 package deal.
Yes, I think I saw that. So I'm going to be calling or emailing you and 2 other people that ordered it, just so we can connect and make sure that everything's what you need.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
Can the counselor input the Scouts, or is it done by the Scouts when they purchase?
No, so once it's purchased, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. Once it's purchased, I will get an email, and then I know I can go and put that Scout populate them into the workbook. So yeah, because part of when the parent goes in and purchases this Scout, the book, they have to provide an email address. And so normally I would take that email address, or I can find out if that's the email, if they don't want to use that email address, if there's another one. But that's what I create the workbook with, is that email address. But technically you got in before some of these were explained. And so normally, eventually I'm going to have a code that has to be used in order to purchase. So like, ideally you would you would have your group, you'd correspond with me, I'd set up your group and give you a code, and then you give that code to the parents, and
Okay.
and then they would, you know what I mean, they'd put it in. That way I can match up which diocese everybody's in, each person's in.
And I was curious about, how do I know who say they're in my class?
Right, that's why we have to correspond first to set up the group. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll call you. I was going to call you later.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kathy, listening to this discussion,
Mhm.
if Nora was in my diocese instead of just south of me,
Uh-huh.
how would I know that she, as New York Archdiocese, that she is starting this program?
Well, so Elizabeth is going to be so part of the emails once this all starts, and I'm going to be sharing all this with Elizabeth. So she would probably have the master, well, I'll have a master group too, obviously, but I can let Elizabeth know. And then, I don't know, we might have to work, maybe we can put something on the website that would show the groups that are participating. If you wanted to, and ideally, we'll have some other people that will be admins in your area too. But so is your concern that you want to know that she's working on it nearby?
No, I really want to know that Joe Schmo out in Pedunk, New York, has a bad reputation, and he's just started a class, and I didn't even know about it.
Yeah. Well, again,
Very concerned about that. Yes.
My problem actually has been just the opposite. It's been priests that have started and run the full class, and then call me up and say, Jerry, I've completed this. What do I do now?
Yeah.
Can the diocese provide to somebody their list of certified counselors?
Yes, that would be very helpful because like I mentioned before, that's part of the training. And so that's one thing we want to make sure is that everybody is certified as a counselor. And by certified, I mean having youth protection training and diocesan safe environment training.
And I'm saying certified means that
they just
on the application is a pastor has to approve the counselor.
Right.
I said that we actually have somebody. There's a control of who's taking it, because you may have taken the class and have done youth protection, but you were just marching in the parade in front of St. Patrick's, desecrating St. Patrick's. I don't want you.
Right. Well, so that's something, I mean, my thought was that would all be controlled at the diocesan level with the local committees, but.
It should be controlled by the local committee.
Right.
But what you just described is that the stuff is coming directly to you, not through the diocesan committee.
Temporarily, yeah.
Well, it's happening.
So I think I better, well, those are good comments. So I'll make sure that I connect with each committee that, if someone's from a certain diocese, that's the thing right now. I need to check to make sure that they're certified, I think. So yeah, good point.
And let's
to make your life easy, Kathy, even if you just email to the chair of the diocesan committee that this person is doing it, it covers you.
Right, that's true. Yeah.
I'm not trying to make your life difficult.
Oh no, but that's all.
I'm just trying to avoid a problem.
No, but that's all part of what we want to make sure. So, and that ideally we wanted all of that approval before so when they go into the website and order. But the only thing we can really do on there is like we're saying that the diocese is required. I'm going to ask them in the comment section that they have to put in the name of their diocese and like the chairman of their committee. There's different stuff in the notes part, but anybody could technically make that up. I know that, but that's why we want to try to do it where they're going to have a session number that they have to put in, and then that way I know that they're already going to be approved before they even go in. So
one other thing I'd add to that discussion is everyone in capital letters underlined takes BSA youth protection also. Taking your diocesan safe environment is not sufficient. You have to have both.
Right, that's right. And that's what we had.
It depends on the diocese.
Yeah. So we want to have that. So on the online store, you can go to our website, which is nccs-bsa.org. And it's not all obvious where to click, but if you look at the up top banner on the right-hand side, it says shop. If you click on shop, that'll take you to the store. Or here's the link right here. I don't know if I can copy that. That could go, except I probably can't do that right now. Well, anyway, this is the link right here to take you directly to the store. So either way, when you go into the store, it'll show you an image of the book. So it'll show you this image right here. And then we're trying to put watermark, there's an explanation underneath and everything, but we're trying to put a watermark on it that tells you what to order. So it's more clear. So we're working on that. But yeah. So anyway, that's kind of that's the program. Did you have any questions about any of this? Or I'm sure there might be. So.
I'm Carol Cafferly.
Hi, Carol.
I'm coming at it from the parents' side. And I was reading the comments as well as just trying to find a counselor. We live in Dubai, so we'd be considered the remote and we have a Catholic church here, but obviously it's an international, and so they don't really have a counselor or anything or know about the program. But my son, now my daughter, but I started with my son. He received his Purvuli Day, but we were living in the States then, so it was easier. But we've been trying to no avail to try to get him started in the Altare.
Right.
Sorry.
That's okay. Altare Dei.
Thank you. But and I, you know, it's been several years. It's been kind of an ongoing thing of just one wall after another, and you know, we even got TAC approval to move ahead, but then we realized, well, we don't really have the NCCS approval. We had, you know, his confirmation sponsor here who said he would be more than happy to work with him, but he wasn't an approved counselor for this program.
Well, if you want to use I mean, that's one of the features of the electronic workbook, though, is that he could be in a group from someone else in another area.
Right. Well, that's why we jumped on this when we saw it, because he has wanted to do it, and now my daughter is getting to that age as well. But and we just haven't been able to. We even our Austin diocese down in Austin, Texas. It's just been the COVID has almost been a blessing with regards to this for us, at least.
Carol?
Yeah.
Yes.
Carol, are you military or expat?
That's what I think.
We're expat.
Okay.
You're an expat. Okay.
Yeah.
I've been in touch with AJ in Rome, who's the chairman of the district committee. He's trying to work all these issues. So if you want to check with him, we got to make it easy for you to do, not throw hamper any problems in the way.
There's an archdiocese for military service, and then there's, but there is I just was emailed something yesterday about that, trying to reach families who are non-military, you know, in living in other countries.
Right. Yeah, I was an Army brat, and we, you know, grew up overseas, so very familiar with that, and we were very fortunate with that. But now on the expat side of it, it's like,
It's harder, but Elizabeth will handle the paperwork for you. It's just how to get the counselor. And
yes.
Work with AJ since he's part of your Europe, Mediterranean, Africa district.
Right.
And I think he may be district chair as well as on the.
And who is AJ? Sorry. So sorry.
AJ. Oh, I can't think of his last name. John Anthony. What was AJ's last name?
So can I ask you to can you put your name and email in the chat, and then I'll get that so we can follow up. And Jerry, I don't know if Jerry, if you want to, Jerry Scanlon, why don't you tell, so everybody here knows why you're so knowledgeable about international stuff.
Because I've been involved for 1 or 2 years, and I'm currently the world vice chairman of the Catholic Committee of Scouting.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
But back 15, 20 years ago, I was chair of the Emblems Committee of NCCS, and I spent many years as a vice chair of NCCS.
Yes, he did. So, but he's familiar with a lot of our international questions. So, but if you have that information, then we can follow up with you.
Sure. Yep. Typing it in now, and yeah, my son and daughter are actually on the call because we weren't sure how, about the call, what it was going to be. So
No, we can make sure for sure that he's able to participate. So that's one of the
Yeah.
beautiful features about the program.
No, I know. That's why when we're hoping that with the whole Zoom aspect right now, they've been participating with TAC on all of their. They've had a lot of summer paloozas the past few weeks, and so they've been busy this week participating with that. So another advantage of Zoom.
Did
Kathy,
you?
this is John Lyon.
Yeah,
I just wanted to
okay.
thank you for doing all of this hard work, because what I see this as a great example of, and I work on the National Religious Relationships Committee in the Emblems and Awards area, and I'm ready to prompt many other faiths to be looking at this opportunity, especially, frankly, the Protestant ones, the ones that I know the best. And Jason Nolan and I will guaranteed be having numerous conversations, and we'll be probably chatting with you further.
I know Jason actually called me one day too. So yeah, so for sure. Well,
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. John Anthony, are there any things in the chat we need to address? You there? Hello, John.
You may have had to jump off. It looks like you've got most of the items that were in the chat box.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. I guess I can. Okay. All right. Well,
I had a question in the chat that wasn't answered.
okay, Diane, what is it?
Is there any interest in or progress in development of an electronic Virtual Dei manual?
Well, that question has been asked a number of times, especially lately, and not yet. So,
Okay.
yeah, no.
And we also, and my grandsons were in NCAC, National Capital Area Council. And they had a dickens of a time finding a counselor. They live in Frederick, Maryland, and the counselors they were given were in Virginia.
Yeah. Well,
they were like 2 hours away, so they couldn't do it.
Right. Well,
now they eventually, both of them, I believe, eventually did find somebody, but it took them like 2 years to find somebody local enough that they could actually go find a group.
Yeah. Well, I think our big follow-up on this is we're announcing it nationally and all of that, but we're gonna try to get people within regions. And we have 15 regions, 14 of whom would have candidates for this program, and then try to connect people, especially in an instance like that, just so you would know. But first, you would go to your local diocesan committee or whatever you have locally. But if there's nothing happening there, then we would make sure that the scouts are connected with counselors even in an adjacent. It doesn't matter, a neighboring Catholic committee or whatever. But we'll make sure now, because we can do this electronically and through the different like Google Hangout, Zoom, or whatever, we can serve anybody in different areas.
But that wasn't much in place at the time. And I also
I know
about becoming a counselor, and I struck out there too.
Oh no. So, well, be sure to contact me if you need my contact information too. It's on, if you visit our National Catholic Committee website, it's under, I'm listed there because I'm a vice chairman too. So it's all, my information will probably be lots of places. I could put it in the chat. Let's see.
I would just like to add one comment about doing this for the Cub programs. Those are supposed to be done with a parent, so I don't know that something like this is necessary.
No,
it's really supposed to be a I'm using one-on-one, but it's not a group session with a counselor. It's essentially a parent-child relationship we're building.
Yeah, I think she was asking about Pope Pius.
Parents in order to do it with them was hard.
Yeah, Pope Pius would be hard because the major part of Pope Pius is the discussion among the youth.
Yeah. So
that's what Zoom meetings are for. And I've been a counselor now for 18 years. I think the greatest value of both the Altare and Pope Pius programs are the youth teaching one another, the youth being evangelizing one another, and I just put together the environments where that happens. And I think that gathering, we got to deal with COVID, but when we can, it is so important. So tonight we're going to hang out in a mausoleum and look at all the signs and symbols there. And reconciliation, we have a campfire that takes away our sins. We haven't decided how we're going to do baptism this year. In the past, we've all gathered around the baptismal font in church. This, I don't want to say it's not a head program, because we need to encourage our kids to learn their faith and use their heart. But this is experiencing God. And it is through the experience and through the scouting program and the scouting relationships that I have found the sacraments are made more real to the young people I deal with.
Yep, no, that's important.
Bravo, Zulu.
Any other comments or questions? I'm not, let's see, now I closed this, I can see some of them. But, yeah. So if you ever have any questions, comments, suggestions, please just email them to me. And let's see, I'll put my email in here in the chat.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for leading this session. There may be a few of you that are trying to jump on to the next session, so we'll see you guys later today or maybe later this week.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining and for wanting to help promote this program and implement it. Thank you.
Bravo, Zulu. Very well done.